What's up guys, today I'll be comparing the two titans of PvE in Destiny 2, first being 1000 Voices, the new raid exclusive drop from Riven in the Last Wish raid, versus the Whisper of the Worm, which is from the Whisper mission on Io. If you don't know what that is, you've been under a rock for the past few months. These two guns are easily the best power weapons in PvE in the game, probably the two best exotics in the game, and probably the two best guns in PvE in Destiny 2, and maybe the history of the game, up there with G-Horn and the likes of that. These two guns are kind of different, but they kind of take the same role, so I'm going to try to break them down the best I can and compare them one-to-one the best I can and see which one is the best if I can find an answer to that question, because they're kind of very unique guns and function pretty differently, but I'm going to go ahead and try to tackle that question in this video. So let's begin. First, starting with the damage of the two weapons, first with the 1000 Voices, I went ahead and slowed down and went frame by frame on this footage multiple times, and I finally found what the damage of one shot 1000 Voices is on this Ogre. So I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen right here. So the impact hits 94 10 times, and the explosion hits 12, 11, 10 times for a total of 13,050 overall, and one laser, whatever you want to call this, charge of this weapon. Now I'm going to go ahead and find the rate of fire of this weapon by shooting 6 shots and finding how long it takes to shoot all 6, including the charge rate of all the shots. So, as we see, it's taking quite a while. It's a slow charge rate. It takes 11.274 seconds to shoot all 6 shots. So with the previous information, we can find the damage per second of the 1000 Voices, and it's 6,945 on this Ogre. I'd rather compare that to the Whisper now. So with the Whisper, without box breathing procced, the regular headshot is 5,224. Now with the perk procced Whisper breathing, we're going to hit roughly 60% more, which is 8,439. And now finding the rate of fire of the Whisper of the Worm, once again to find the damage per second number. Go ahead and shoot off 10 shots this time and find the number based off that. So it took roughly 7.197 seconds to shoot all 10 shots, which means the damage per second of the Whisper is 7,258 without the perk. Now with the perk, it's 11,725, which is quite a bit more than the 1000 Voices. Moving past the numbers for a second, a few things to note. Whisper of the Worm, since it's a sniper which has a high crit modifier, it excels on enemies with an easy crit to hit, then also enemies with high health to take advantage of that high crit modifier. On top of that, Whisper of the Worm has white no, which means whenever you hit 3 precision shots back to back, you will then get your mag back for free, and it will not take from the reserves. So this gun, when executed correctly, can have infinite ammo, which is a huge plus on enemies with a lot of health. For example, something like Argos or even Riven, these raid boss fights where the bosses have a lot of health and the fight takes a long time, something like Whisper of the Worm excels greatly in those scenarios. So in the scenarios where Whisper of the Worm works well, it works very well, and it's unmatched by anything in the history of the game. On the bosses that you need a lot of damage and a lot of consistent damage, Whisper of the Worm is by far the best option in the story, no questions asked. Moving on. The higher the health of the enemy, the better this gun becomes, and the gap between it and other guns in the game grows larger and larger the more health the boss has. Now, staying on topic of single target damage, the 1000 Voices excels in this category also, maybe not as much as Whisper of the Worm, but on lanes with bad crit spots, this gun is actually kind of better than Whisper of the Worm because it cannot crit anyways. It's kind of like G-Horn in a way, where it's very easy to use and very consistent, and does not require precision aim or anything like that. So on these targets that don't have the best crits, it is very good. For example, Kalos, who has a decent crit but moves around a lot when 6 people are shooting, something like 1000 Voices is probably better overall. So like I said with Whisper of the Worm, once bosses have more health, it kind of got better and better. So the exact opposite kind of is true with 1000 Voices. The lower the health of the enemy, the better it is compared to Whisper of the Worm, because of the fact that it does such a high single shot damage compared to Whisper of the Worm. The more shots you have to fire, the more the charge rate of this gun takes into effect of its damage per second. So the lower amount of shots, the better. Also, I wanted to quickly show off the ammo of these two guns. The 1000 Voices can hold 8 with 1 fusion rifle reserves or 7 without, which is very similar to G-Horn back in Destiny 1. Then the Whisper of the Worm can hold up to 22 or 21 normally without a reserve perk. And on top of that, it has white no, which is every time you hit 3 shots, you get the mag back for free. So basically, it can have infinite ammo as long as you take advantage of the perk and don't miss, as you see right here. But once again, in scenarios where you don't need that much ammo, 1000 Voices can actually compete in those scenarios. Things like strike bosses, Poke event bosses, Lost Sector bosses, all those things. 1000 Voices is probably better, but only for those really high health enemies is where Whisper of the Worm really starts to shine. So to sum up some of the points of this video so far for the damage of the two weapons, the lower the health of the enemy you're fighting, the closer the 1000 Voices is to Whisper of the Worm in terms of effectiveness on that enemy. But as the health of the enemy gets higher, Whisper of the Worm becomes better and better because of the fact that it has more ammo, and basically infinite ammo, and also the fact that it does more damage per second. But on lower health enemies, where 1000 Voices can do like half the enemy's health in one shot alone, that's where it becomes more even and almost in the favor of 1000 Voices because of the ease of use without having to hit crits on every single shot and things like that. So it's a lot like a G-Horn versus Black Spindle from D1, but now it's Whisper of the Worm and 1000 Voices in this game. So Whisper of the Worm is better for single target damage in some scenarios compared to 1000 Voices, but one thing 1000 Voices can do that Whisper of the Worm cannot do is ad clear, and this is where the game changes a lot. This gun is near G-Horn level good for ad clear, if not even better. The amount of things you can kill with one shot of this gun by swiping around and whatnot and letting it all explode is actually absurd. And overall, this gun, once I break it down, really reminds me of G-Horn from Destiny 1, where it has extremely good ad clear, pretty good single target damage, and overall just good at anything you throw at it. Now don't get me wrong, just like in D1, G-Horn wasn't the absolute best at everything, it was just very good at a lot of things. There were better options in some scenarios, but for overall utility, it was probably the best in the game, just like this gun is now in Destiny 2. So really, this all comes down to one question, is where Whisper of the Worm shines, those few scenarios where you're facing high health targets, for example raid bosses and whatnot, is that enough to overcome the fact that it has no ad clear potential at all, while 1000 Voices is extremely good at ad clear and also very good at boss damage, but maybe not as good as Whisper of the Worm? And in my opinion, the answer to that question is no. 1000 Voices in practice is extremely good on almost all bosses in the game except a few, and those few are ones with high crit modifiers, for example things like Riven, things like Argos. But outside of those like two encounters right there alone, 1000 Voices can hold its own almost toe-to-toe with Whisper of the Worm in terms of boss damage. Then on top of that, 1000 Voices is extremely good at ad clear, like G-Horn level good. But don't get me wrong, this comparison is extremely tight, very close. I can see an argument either way. Like I said, personally, I would go with 1000 Voices, giving it a slight edge because of the fact it's more versatile than Whisper of the Worm. Even in this scenario, Whisper of the Worm is a very close second as the best gun in the game. But anyways, let me know what you think about this. Which one do you think is the better gun and for what reason? The rest of the video will be just strike gameplay because it was solar heavyweight and both these guns are solar and heavies. So I went ahead and had some fun in strikes for a bit. And anyways, that's me it for the video. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.
Barriers. Savannah, I think they're trying to contain the Red Legion.
They have bigger problems, namely ego.
so powerful. Be careful.